Hi, welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Having some problems with my Google document, so I'm closing it and open up a new one. I got to get segment titles off to Jeffrey so we can get them posted on our website. So that will be up in just a moment. Now, before I jump in, I want to get back to this business about what's going on in the shutdown. And let me just rehearse that for you because I find this just absolutely obscene. I've got another story here. This will make your blood boil too, not as much as the veterans benefits thing, but the National Institutes for Health. Now remember, the National Institutes for Health, this is the agency of the government that treats kids with cancer. And when the Republicans in the House passed a bill to reopen the National Institutes for Health so that kids with cancer could get surgery, Harry Reid refused to do it. He was asked, and he said, why would I want to do that? Why would we want to do that? It's another one of those bills. Remember, the House has voted 26 times. Republicans have voted 26 times to keep government open, to fund the essential services of government. They've voted 26 times since the Senate last voted a single time. Senate hasn't voted. House has cast 26 votes since the last vote in the Senate. So the House keeps sending these funding bills over to the Senate, and the Senate keeps turning them down. Now, this is the National Institutes House. Remember, the reason this is shut down, the reason this story is about to take place is because of Harry Reid and Barack Obama. This is from cnsnews.com. Get a load of this. The clinical center at the National Institutes of Health has suspended its dog therapy program because of the government shutdown, according to John Burklow, a spokesperson for the NIH, National Institutes of Health. Burklow said the dogs, which pay visits to patients in the hospital, including children with cancer, have to be seen by veterinarians, and a team on staff made the decision to suspend the program. So this is just amazing to me. The volunteers run the dog therapy program. Doesn't cost taxpayers a dime, but they've got this Mickey Mouse rule that there are veterinarians who are on the NIH staff. They are paid as federal employees. Unless they're on duty getting paid, we're not going to let these therapy dogs in to even provide some lift to these kids with cancer. Abby Wetzel talked about her son, Sam, who's dying of leukemia. They can only come once a week, but it's the highlight of Sam's week. He was disappointed. He really looks forward to the dogs coming. He has a special fondness for the little dogs that come and just sit on his bed and lay down and curl up with him. But the guy says, no dice, not going to reopen until John Boehner and the Republicans come begging at the foot of the throne of Barack the Benevolent. And then let me hit you with this military benefit thing again, because this goes way past just grinding my gears. I mean, you talk about something that is just so, you think it's bad that we're blocking veterans from the World War II memorial. And this story I've got, let me just double check that story. I'm pretty sure that it was Normandy. I just saw it on the way over here. U.S. war veterans turned away from World War II memorial in France. Let me see if I can get that story to open up here on my iPhone. So it's bad enough that you have veterans being turned away from the World War II memorial. We've actually had veterans, Vietnam veterans, that were escorted away from the Vietnam memorial by police. They were kicked out of the Vietnam memorial. And if you've ever been there, I've been there several times, and it's just an open air thing. It's just a big, long slab of granite with the names of 58,000 Americans who died in Vietnam. That's it. There's no gate to unlock. It's not surrounded by anything, completely open air. So just completely absurd that would be locked up. As I mentioned the other day, the only monument memorial I've seen that's not locked away, barricaded, is the LBJ Memorial. That's because there's not a chance in the world that any veterans would want to go visit his memorial. But here is this outrage I'm telling you about. Cheryl K. Chumley on the Washington Times this morning, which, by the way, is one of the two newspapers that Antonin Scalia reads. I didn't get to this yesterday. He doesn't read the Washington Post. It's shrilly liberal. It's nasty and it's slanted, he says. So I don't even bother to read it. My blood pressure couldn't take it. So I read the Washington Times, which is an outstanding newspaper, and I read the Wall Street Journal. In the Wall Street Journal, the reporting leans to the left, but the editorial page is pretty conservative. I'm on the Wall Street Journal editorial page every day doing show prep. Anyway, here's this piece from Cheryl Chumley. At least 5 families of U.S. military members killed in Afghanistan over the weekend were given a double whammy by federal officials. Not only have your loved ones died, but due to the government shutdown, you won't receive a death benefit. Now remember, this is coming right from the top. President Obama said, look, I want you to make this hurt. I want you to make life as difficult as you possibly can. I want you to inflict pain on the American people. You think Torquemada's got nothing on me. He knew how to inflict pain. He hadn't seen nothing yet. I want you to make this as painful and as mean and as hurtful as you possibly can. The death benefit for a soldier who dies in combat is $100,000 and is wired to family members of the killed military member within 36 hours of the death. The so-called death gratuity is aimed at paying for funeral costs and to help with those living expenses normally covered by the soldier's paycheck. They serve as transition pay benefit until the military survivor benefits begin. The $100,000 also helps military families fly to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware while the coffins carrying their loved ones are being unloaded so they can be there when the bodies of their loved ones come back. The Pentagon revealed the elimination of funeral pay along with the impacts of the shutdown in a press release. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I don't even know what to say. I'm just kind of left completely stunned and completely speechless. They can go out there and authorize $47,000 for a mechanical bull. Again, that's U.S. Army, so it's these same people. This is coming from the top, ultimately. I mean, the commander-in-chief responsible for this kind of environment attitude. So we got $47,000 for a mechanical bull. We do not have $100,000 for the family of someone who gave his life wearing the uniform in Afghanistan. So anyway, that's going on. 5 of them died over the weekend. I had that story. 4 American soldiers and then another one died, Taliban attack. And again, my question again there in Afghanistan, they died for what? What are we even doing there? What purpose are we serving? I think we got to get those guys home and get them home right now. Well, let me do a couple of other pieces. Rob, let's just keep this rolling. A couple of other shutdown stories. I don't want to get to healthcare. I've got a column up today at our news site, One News Now. I want to touch on the theme of that here in a minute. But here's another shutdown story for you. And this is another thing. I mean, it's pointless. It's mean. It's petty. It's childish. It's juvenile. It's like government by temper tantrum. Listen to this. Talking about a tourist at Yellowstone Park. And you got tourists on this trip, on this visit, on this tour bus from Japan, Australia, Canada, and the U.S. And they interview somebody named Viancourt, who was one of the tourists. For many hours, her tour group, this is Yellowstone National Park now, for many hours, her tour group, which included senior citizen visitors from Japan, Australia, Canada, and the United States, were locked in a Yellowstone National Park hotel under armed guard. The tourists were treated harshly by armed park employees, she said, so much that some of the foreign tourists with limited English skills thought they were under arrest. And here they thought they were coming to the home of the free and the land of the brave. And they thought they were under house arrest in one of our national parks. When finally allowed to leave, the bus was not allowed to halt at all along the 2.5-hour trip out of the park, not even to stop at private bathrooms that were open along the route. Rangers, when October 1 hit, the story goes on, rangers systematically sent visitors out of the park, though some groups that had hotel reservations, such as Viancourt's, were allowed to stay for 2 days. Those 2 days started out on a sour note, she said. The bus stopped along a road when a large herd of bison passed nearby, and seniors filed out to take photos. Get this, almost immediately, an armed ranger came by and ordered them to get back in the bus, saying they couldn't, quote, recreate, end quote. The tour guide, who had paid a $300 fee for the day before, had paid the $300 fee the day before to bring the group into the park, paid it to the federal government, who are now keeping these people from taking pictures. They come from Japan. They come from Australia. They want to take pictures of the bison in Yellowstone Park. There they are in front of the bus. They get off the bus to take pictures. The park ranger comes up and drives them back on the bus. You can't take pictures. You cannot recreate. It is against now federal law for you to recreate, to enjoy yourself in one of our national parks. She responded by saying, sir, no. She argued, the tour guide argued that they weren't recreating. They were just taking photos. She responded, it's a female guard doing this, female ranger. She responded and said, sir, you are recreating, and her tone became very aggressive. So much for public servant, eh? The seniors quickly filed back on board, and the bus went to the Old Faithful Inn, the park's premier lodge located adjacent to the park's most famous site, Old Faithful Geyser. That was as close as they could get to the famous site. Barricades were erected around Old Faithful, and the seniors were locked inside the hotel where armed rangers stayed at the door, lest they go out the front door of the hotel, apparently, and watch Old Faithful go up. Barricades around Old Faithful. That's just absurd. That thing goes hundreds of feet up in the air. Barricade isn't going to stop people from seeing it. It's just Mickey Mouse. So you got these armed rangers outside their hotel doors in Yellowstone National Park. Don't you dare leave. Some of the Asians who were on the tour said, are we under arrest? They felt like they were criminals. As the bus made its 2.5-hour journey out of Yellowstone, the tour guide made arrangements to stop at a full-service bathroom at an in-park dude ranch he had done business with in the past. The dude ranch had been warned that its license to operate would be revoked if it allowed the bus to stop, so the bus continued to Livingstone, Montana. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back in 2.
Leanne Williamson of Christian World Missions.